What up, people? My name is Gene, and this is the Feeding Model, where we focus on getting better at capturing models that feed your eyes and nourish your soul. I'm talking about food photography and film, as well as product photography and film. Welcome back to my returning subscribers. Come on, man, give it up. Give it up. One time for my first time viewers. You could have been anywhere in this YouTube world, but you're here with me. You're here with us. And we appreciate you for that. All right, so in this episode, I want to go over focus stacking, what it is, how to do it. I spoke on this a little bit on the last video where I went over some macro photography tips for beginners. We went over some things like stabilizing your shot, how to get the best possible focusing using a live view. And I felt like I needed to talk about focus stacking in a separate video of its own. It's actually gonna be a two-part video. Part one, we're gonna go over setting up your camera, different methods and techniques you can use in camera, different tools you can use aside from your camera to get this focusing done. And in part two, we'll go over putting it all together as a composite image using Lightroom and Photoshop. Sounds good? Good. Focus stacking is when you take multiple photos with different depths in focus and putting them all together to create one photo that's entirely in focus. When we talk about focus, we're working in a three-dimensional plane. We're working in the Z-axis, I guess you could say, because your X is your horizontal, your Y is your vertical, and then you have your Z-axis, which is basically from your camera way out to the depths of Narnia. So that's what you're basically doing when you start to get into focus stacking, or when you're adjusting your focus, period. You're just basically shifting your focus in the Z plane, in the three-dimensional plane, from closest to furthest away from you. All right, so we pretty much have the common scenario of when focus stacking comes in clutch. Once I cut this light off, we're gonna be in a situation right now where there's not much light available. We're strictly relying on this window, natural lighting. It's a nice overcast type of day. We're gonna have to shoot at a wide open aperture, which is gonna result into a shallower depth of field, which of course, as we know, not much is gonna be in focus. So basically what we're gonna do is go through the ranks of making sure we snap a couple shots of different depths in focus. This usually takes about 3, maybe 6 shots. It all depends on how big of an area you're trying to cover. I'm gonna finish setting up this camera here. I'm gonna shoot it on my Canon T5 with my 100mm macro lens, and then I'll set the model up and we'll go over everything. All right, so here we go. Here's our model for today. Here's the setup that we're working with today. I wanted to create something simple that had some depth to it so that we can really show how this focus stacking thing is gonna work. So right now, all I have is a bed of chocolate chips with some chocolate chip cookies going further away from the lens. And essentially what I'm gonna try to get in focus is just the chips and the cookies. Anything in this area here. I don't want the background in focus. I think that would be too much in focus. You still want some depth of field in the image. So it's just gonna be the chips and the cookies for the most part. All right, so now that we got everything set up, I got my camera set up, I got my model set up, I have my reflector. It's gonna bounce some light from the window back onto my model. And now it's time to manually pull focus, and there's 2 ways you can go about doing this. You can use the viewfinder or you can use live view. Using the viewfinder is almost like a semi-automatic type of focus because you're still using the camera to let you know that whatever the area is in focus. So let's say if you have your cross point set to focus right here at the center, basically what you're gonna do is you're gonna hold your shutter button down halfway and manually focus until you have that center area in focus. Once you have that area in focus, your camera is going to give you a visual and audible notification that it's in focus based off what the camera deems to be in focus. Now, if you don't hear this, you can always go in your menu and make sure you have the beeping sound enabled. But you should hear and see this. You should see the red flickering depending on the cross point that you have set to be the focus point in your camera. That's one way of doing it. The other way, which is the more common way, is just using the live view and visually making sure that the area that you want in focus is in focus. So I'm gonna rotate this focus ring and you'll see what I mean about the different planes and depths going in and out of focus as you rotate the focus ring. So as you can see, as I rotate the focus ring in a clockwise fashion, the focus is going from the closest foreground here and it's shifting and going further and further away till it hits the background. Now the background's in focus. So basically what we're going to be doing is we're going to start here, get this front portion in focus here. Once we get that in focus, we snap that, and then we move our focus point to the second region, and we kind of want the focus to overlap so that there aren't any gaps in the photo where it's not going to be in focus. And basically we're just going to keep going until we get to the very top of the cookie all the way in the back there in focus, and we snap that. All right, so now that I got my lights back off, I'm going to start right here, focus in on this chip at the very bottom, and that's going to be my first shot. And then I'm going to move up till the beginning of the first cookie there. So this is going to be my second shot, and I'm going to move on up, moving on up, actually go up a little bit more, get that one here. And should only need about one or two more. I think that should cover it. And real quick, I wanted to show you this tool that you can also use to help you find focus. It's not needed, it's definitely optional. Since I already have it, I do use it from time to time. It's basically an external monitor made by Small HD that has a focus assist feature built into it. I think some cameras have this built into the camera itself. I'm not really sure, but it does help a lot when you want to visually see what's in focus. And I'm going to go over it real quick and just show you what it looks like. It's an option, again, like I said, but you don't need it. You can visually see what's in focus, but this gives you an aid showing you what's in focus by outlining the focus areas in color. So as you can see, as I'm running through the different depths of focus, you can see this little red trail that's basically outlining what's in focus. So you can basically use that as an assistance, as a guide to kind of lay out and show you what's being in focus. As you can see, the more red that you have, the more pixels that are being picked up. So for the cookie, you can clearly see that it's in focus. And as you shift back towards the lens of the camera, you can see how it's going from each cookie, each layer, and back to the very foreground of the image. So again, like I said, it's not something that you need, but if you have it, it's nice to have. It helps you pull focus, and you know, it's just something cool to have. So I'll leave a link to this in the description below if you want to check it out. It's basically doing the same thing that you were doing, but just with a little extra help. All right, so that pretty much covers the in-production process of capturing the different photos so that we can stack it in post using Lightroom and Photoshop. All right, so now that we got our images, I got them imported into Lightroom, and what we're gonna do now is edit the photos. I always like to edit on Lightroom. I just like doing the treatment on Lightroom versus on Photoshop. I'm just gonna choose one of the images to work off of. As far as doing like white balance and different little tweaks here and there. So I'm gonna cool that down a little bit, bring up the exposure and some contrast, just little small tweaks. All right, so now that I got the editing done for one photo, I'm just gonna go ahead and sync all the photos because they're the same photos, same frame. And from there, we'll take that and move it over to Photoshop. Basically, I'm gonna copy the settings and select the photos that I wanna apply them to, right click, go to develop settings, and then paste them onto these photos here. Never fails. Yo, my computer's gonna die one day trying to do this whole QuickTime screen recording while using Lightroom and Photoshop. One day this is just gonna say enough is enough. Now that I got all my images set, right click that and go over to edit, open as layers in Photoshop. And what that's gonna do is open Photoshop and have each photo as a layer in one project. And that's gonna take a while. I'm gonna have a cookie. So now we have all the layers in Photoshop, and you can see as I'm turning them off here, the different layers, different focus areas. So if we want, we can relabel each of these images so that we know which area is in focus. This one we'll call it first. That's very creative. This one we'll call it second. Guess what we're calling this one? Fourth. I should probably have better names, but who cares? This one we call it back. And this is gonna be in between, because this one here was the ridge line between the furthest cookie standing upright and the last one on the top there. So now it's time to compose this image and try to get everything in focus. So we have our layers here, and there's two ways to do this. You can do this manually, which is basically going to be creating a layer mask for each layer and brushing the focus areas in. And that's real simple to do. You just come over here, go down, create a layer mask, and then invert that mask and just brush in the areas that you want to be in focus. So we know that the first one was the closest to the lens. So we just basically come here with a brush and just brush that back in. And as you can see, we're putting into focus what was out of focus. You're basically doing that for every single layer. The other option would be to just have Photoshop do that for you, and that's even more simpler to do. Basically, all you'd have to do for that, highlight all of your layers, come up to the edit menu, and scroll down till you hit auto blend layers. And what that's gonna do is it's gonna allow Photoshop to blend in all of the images and picking out parts of the images of each layer that's in focus. So you click that and you make sure that stacked images is chosen, because we're not doing a panoramic photo, we're doing stacked focus stacking. You leave these two check boxes as they are by default, and you just hit OK, and then you wait again, and Photoshop is doing its magic. There you have it. It's pretty much done everything that you were gonna do. As you can see, all the layer masks are created. All the parts that it deemed to be in focus are brushed in, and it also created a master layer, which is the focused image, which is the first and merge layer that's at the very top. So if you disable that layer, you can actually go through and see what it took from each layer to build the final image. If you're unhappy with what it selected from each layer, you can actually go in with a brush and manually brush in more of what you want. Make any minor adjustments that you want to make, add any additional parts, or remove something that you thought should not be there. So that pretty much covers focus stacking, both in camera and putting them together in Photoshop to create the final image where everything is in focus. Everything you want to be in focus is in focus. Once you get this done, you're pretty much good to go. Export it, add it to your portfolio, post it on the gram, whatever the case may be. I hope you found this video helpful. If you have any questions, just drop it down in the comment section below, and I will see y'all in the next video. Peace.